Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of June 15th, 2020. And the subject this week is, let's give some thanks to the editors. And let me explain exactly what I mean by that. It seems like the new trend in television is, and it's a very inventive trend, is to take a whole bunch of footage from a whole bunch of different places and turn it into a TV show. I give credit to the folks in programming who thought of stuff like this. You might have seen, for example, the Disney sing-alongs that ABC has produced. And over the weekend, I noticed that HGTV is rolling out a couple of new shows where basically you've got the traditional stable of HGTV designers sitting in their occasionally awful-looking homes, sending stuff to people for them to take care of on their own. It's an inventive way of dealing with the crisis that we're in the middle of. And I'd say it's a good thing because it's keeping a lot of people employed. The people it's not keeping employed, unfortunately, are the studio crews who used to do a lot of that stuff. And now it looks like a lot of those crews are being replaced by just equipment that's mailed to people that friends or family members do themselves. This means that there's probably a lot more useless footage and a lot more work for editors to do. I mean, think about it. Let's just say you've got 16 people singing on some one of those Disney things. And, well, somebody's got to take all of those 16 pieces of footage and put them all together. If you're watching a news show where they interview somebody over Zoom, chances are you're not looking at the real news feed that you get. It's not really that. In fact, most likely the host who is doing the interviewing isn't looking at the Zoom feed at all. They're probably looking at a high-quality camera on their site, which is why they always look great, and the people on Zoom never do. And then none of that's happening in real time. Somebody is recording the Zoom meeting or the Skype meeting or whatever technology they're using, and then editing it back together so it looks like it makes sense. Add another level of complexity if, for example, it's something like the Daily Show interviews, which notoriously run long and then need to be edited back. So I want to give some credit to the editors out there. This is not an easy time, although I'm sure they're glad to have jobs. This is not an easy time to be an editor. And it's a good time considering that there's a lot of software out there that helps with this sort of thing, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. You can use technology that essentially allows you to switch between pre-recorded sources live if you want to do that. More often than not, these things are edited together, not in real time, even though the people who are doing them have the pressure of getting them done in a very, very tight time frame. I know a little bit about this because, as many of you know, I produce a lot of the videos that you see on Solid Signal's YouTube channel. And editing is a very difficult and time-consuming proposition. I'm not going to say I'm the fastest or best at it, but in general, I will take somewhere between 5 to 25 minutes for every finished minute of footage, which that is just with the stuff that I shoot, and it's not trying to combine 16 different things at the same time, like you will find on some of these video cases. It's very time consuming and it's not particularly forgiving work. There are a lot of tools that make it easier, but it's very easy to make the kind of mistake that will set you back minutes or hours if you're not saving your work frequently, just like everything else. So television technology is changing. It's good, of course, that we have high quality cell phones that take really good footage at this point because it's easier to ship that stuff to people. It's a good thing that we have this kind of PC-based editing system. Going back a lot of years when I started first doing this sort of thing, it was all proprietary. There were unique editing consoles that cost $100,000 or so that were very limited in what they were able to do. Today you can do almost anything your heart desires, and you can do it without a real loss of quality, which is pretty amazing. It all just depends on how fast your computer is and how much hard drive space you have. For example, I recently tried to re-edit a piece of footage, and following some tutorials that I found on YouTube, that was great, except for it required me to render an intermediate, which took something like 800 gigs of space to use. and that made it a little bit hard to keep the final saved editing files once I was done with it. I was able to squeak by with that amount of hard drive space to begin with, but I couldn't really keep all of my working files. It was just impossible. So a big shout out to all of the people that I know and all the people that I don't who edit video for a living. It's not easy. It's not easy now, and yet you're as essential as anything else in providing the kind of entertainment that we need right now. That's about it for me on the Solid Signal Podcast for this week. Look for new content every week on the Solid Signal Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on any source that you use to watch or listen to this podcast. We're now on Spotify, if you hadn't been made aware of that, the world's most popular podcasting platform at the moment. Just look for the Solid Signal Podcast. Thanks, and have a great week.